she does for on a daily basis or a weekly basis for what we're going to eat at night.
Right.
Convincing me to take things into lunch. That all is stems from the partnership and the love that we have for each other to make sure that we do meet our goal, which is we want to be together longer than we would have had we not done this.
Welcome back, everybody. This is my conversation with Bruce, part 2, that is only probably 2 months late in being released. We had some technical issues combined with life happening, shall we say. Anyways, I'm proud to present part 2 of my conversation with Bruce. And I think I mentioned in the at least at the end of part 1 that I had a episode that would be released containing a conversation that I had with Johanna, Bruce's partner, and that should be out. Both parts should be out if it requires to. Both of them should be out by the end of January. And anywho, I left the meeting, or at least the meeting concluded this past Saturday, and as I was walking out, I was approached by another one of my tribe mates who asked me, how do I get access to the podcast? And for those that may not necessarily be familiar with what a podcast is, for those of you who are listening anyways, back when Apple had released their, what was those things called? The Apple, basically it was a little music player, right? Preceded the iPhone. It was the iPod. Duh. Hello. And so they had this contraption that you could download your music onto and listen. And somebody got an idea that you could, bypass radio and you could basically make a show, and you could record your show, and then people could find it on a website or through iTunes, and you could download that show onto your iPod, and the podcast was born. That's why they call it a podcast, because they used to be downloaded onto an iPod. And as technology progressed, obviously more and more people got into it, and now podcasts can be accessed through things like Spotify and Amazon and what else? There's apps out there for podcast players that you can download onto your phone, and they usually have a search option, and you can at times find podcasts to your liking just by searching for a topic or for a person's name. So this particular podcast does not have the not that it doesn't have the ability, but it doesn't have the resources, or at least I don't have the desire to allocate my personal resources to be able to make this podcast widely accessible via search engines on podcast apps. my desire is only really to keep it accessible to the people that are very local to Rock Hill. And well, geez, you don't think you could help other folks? That is not my interest. There are other folks out there. The purpose of this particular podcast really is just to help people kind of get to know one another, right? I believe I've spoken about that and have a better understanding of what each person's journey might look like, because everyone's is different. They are not to be seen as, oh, this person lost X amount of pounds and I've only lost X amount, and so therefore that person's a little bit better than me and I'm failing, I'm awful, blah, blah. Like that is not the purpose. The purpose is to take inspiration from the people that you share your workshop with. That's it. Real simple. Nothing major. I try to bring at least the semblance of production quality to this, meaning it's not just a voice. There might be some music. I purposely didn't play like the theme stuff, the theme music and all that for this episode, just because. But I do have to, find some music that has no copyright attached to it, so that I can record it onto my laptop and then mix it with a voiceover or something like that. And then there's this piece. I usually have to complete some editing. I try to take out the long pauses, and if you hear me say the word a lot, just know I didn't edit. I usually spend time listening to the podcast, listening at least to the recorded interview 3 times over, perhaps, trying to catch needless gaps between words, or removing ums and ohs and ahs and all that stuff. I have a tendency to do that. I also tend to think about a question in real time, and I'm trying to put together the best wording. And so I end up having to go back in and removing these long pauses that I'm relatively confident the person that I'm in conversation with might get a little possibly frustrated at that. Like, I'm sure you're going to say something, or you're going to ask me something. Please, cut to the chase here, right? And then there's the sounds, right? You just heard me go, make a little sound with my mouth, other than words. I do that a lot. So I try to remove as many of those as I can. And prior to releasing it, I want the person that sat with me and allowed me to record our conversation, I want them to feel comfortable with what I'm throwing out there. And so they have to listen to it. And if they ask me to remove something, then I go back in and do that. So this is not usually I record the conversation and then it's all over, right? I would say can be anywhere between 3 to 8 hours of total time devoted to doing it once the recorded conversation is over with, and add in 2 to 2.5, 3 hours for the recorded conversation. So when you hear a 2-hour conversation between 2 episodes, know that it was probably longer. I've removed literally 20 minutes of my own wordiness, going off on bizarre tangents, kind of like I am now, so that hopefully the listening experience is not bogged down with the sound of the voice you're hearing now, discussing extraneous topics. So there's that. But regarding this podcast, it would actually cost, $100 or $200 to be able to mass distribute each episode once I upload it. In other words, so if, so on my phone, I have the Podcast Addict podcast app, and I can search. I think you could probably even go into that if you have it on your phone. You could go in there and search Weighing In with Patrick, and 1, 2, maybe 3 things might pop up that are associated with this particular podcast. So to try and make things somewhat easier, it not only on my own checkbook, but time, because, like when I look at an episode after it's been released, there's usually like 15 to 20 plays of that. And I can never necessarily be sure that those are 15 individual people listening to that podcast once. It could be 8 people downloading it twice, right? One piece of feedback that I got, and the reason why it's 2 episodes, was that it's difficult to download it and then try and find the place that you left off at. Can you split the a 2-hour episode up into two 60-minute episodes, right? Anyways, so what I have done is I went and found the cheapest solution, which is to upload these episodes onto audio.com. And if you type in into your search engine on your computer or even on your phone, you can find basically the quote unquote homepage for this particular website. Lots of podcasts have their own website that they will post episodes of their podcast on. And again, maintaining a website in addition to maintaining a podcast for one individual, well, it's not a lot of work. And this, I think, is why some people's podcasts have ads. You'll notice there's no advertisements on this, because I'm not looking to recoup money or anything like that, and I don't want to. I just want this to be about our collective and individual experiences for those who want to share. But if you were to go to your browser, either on your phone, and that can be an iPhone or it can be an Android phone, or your laptop, or your Apple iPad or whatever, and just type in audio.com / and the backslash is the slash that is leaning to the right. So audio.com / Patrick Hull, or Patrick -Hull, even though I am definitely a positive sign, a plus sign. And that should bring you to that particular website, the audio.com page, where I upload each one of these episodes. And the way in which I do it usually is by most recent episode is on top of the list. And so when you get to the web page, you'll see a banner that says Weighing In with Patrick. And then below that, there should be three like tabs, if you will. Audio is one, collections is the second one, and Audacity projects is the other one. Keep it on audio. At least that's what mine says. And then if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see all the different episodes. And I try to post a photograph of the person that I'm interviewing. Oh, yeah, and by the way, most of those are edited too, right? But anyways, if you go on there, you'll notice, like the, you go to an episode, the first episode in line, and if you just read that episode title, it should say, like, so currently it should say episode 8, Bruce Part 2, right? And if you keep moving your eyes to the right, you'll see several icons, several shapes in a row. The first one is looks like a slice of pizza, and then there should be a number next to it, either 0 or 1 or 100, and that number just represents how many times this particular episode has been downloaded. And then there is the share button, the three circles that are connected by lines. And then there's a circle with three dots in the middle. And if you click on that, a menu, or left click on that circle with three dots, you will see some selections, a selection menu pop up. One of them is download. And if you hit that, it will download that episode onto your device, whether it's your laptop, your hard drive on a PC, or onto your phone. And then if you have a hard time looking for it, finding it again, go to your download folder in whatever device you're looking for. So if it's your phone, you would, I guess you'd have to go to try and find your files, and then find a download file, usually is where it might be located. And then once it's there, usually you can decide how to open that file. I would say explore your phone a little bit, or your laptop, or whatever. Usually if you just click on that link, it'll start playing. It's always a good idea to make sure that when you do download it or you do play it back, so if you're playing it back directly from the audio.com website instead of downloading it first, just remember, in both cases, you are eating up data if you are not connected to a Wi-Fi signal. Okay? Anyways, it just kind of dawned on me, not everybody has an idea how to do that. And I'm always, I was kind of caught off guard by the question. So after the meeting, that is, and I think I fumbled my words a lot. And I wouldn't be shocked if that individual had a hard time finding it after my relatively awful directions on how to do so. I hope this is better. Anyways, there's that. Then we have the last several meetings, last several workshops, which I think were pretty good. This past Saturday, we were talking about, how do you handle mood, right? How do you handle mood, especially those moods that impact maybe your motivation, your your desire to want to stay on plan, right? Folks could. I think we can all identify with that idea of, hey, this person really made me upset, and so now I want to eat something, right? Like, um, and I think that sometimes we have the idea that it's only the negative emotions that cause us to want to go down the path of opening the refrigerator to feed a feeling, right? Sometimes, and lots of, I know this is true for me, is like I get that euphoric feeling. I might feel like super on top of the world about something. And how do I celebrate this? Well, I'm not much of a drinker, and I don't smoke cigarettes, and I don't do drugs. Um, you know, this might be an excellent time for a bowl of cereal to celebrate, right? Uh, and so it's not always a case of negative feelings that causes us to get away from what our plan is, and having the ability, I think, to analyze that on either side of that coin, or you know what, sometimes we might eat because we are insanely bored. We just don't know what to do with ourselves. And so we snack. I just got to have something. I just got to have something to keep just to keep me occupied, right? Um, well, again, I think in each case, whether it's a happy, good, wonderful, fantastic, euphoric feeling that one has, or a depressed, angry, frustrated feeling that one has, or almost a neutral feeling, you know, boredom. In each case, this is just my opinion. You are more than welcome to disagree, and if you want to disagree, you can either come on and tell me, um, or you can send your disagreement to my inbox, which is weighingin@gmail.com. But it's just my opinion that, sometimes our brains just really love having that quick shot of dopamine, that sweet, savory, smoky, uh, wonderful, tasty flavors bring us in an instant. And again, not that I don't believe that we can necessarily get addicted to sugar. I think, but that being said, I think we can get obsessed with sugar. I think we can get obsessed with certain foods and how they hit our taste buds, and how our taste buds relay that flavor or that sensation back to our brains. And I believe our brains are always trying, like the devil on our shoulders, always trying to get us to, can I have a little bit more of that? That guy was really mean to you. You know what you should do? You should go and eat a Snickers bar right now. Just pull over. I know where there's a Dunkin' Donuts. You can get one of those pumpkin spiced lattes with several shots of espresso and heavy double cream, whatever, right? And I'll bet you when you make the decision, just when you've made the decision to go and do that, not even well before that has hit your taste buds, but when you start to realize it's going to happen, my guess is you start to feel a little bit better about whatever it was that brought you there. And that is like, to me, that is a trick that our brain pulls on us. But it seems to be a thing. It's a real thing. So it's okay to put the brakes on, and it's okay to analyze what is really happening. And I'm not here to tell you what you're experiencing. I'm not here to tell you that this thing is wrong or that decision is wrong. Boy, I'm just telling you that I think it's always worth a second shot at, at analyzing what has occurred and what the possible solution is. Um, do you want to learn how to be more in control of your emotions? Or do you want to learn to be less in control of your emotions? Because if you feed your emotion tasty stuff, I guarantee you that emotion's going to show up a lot. I just got a hunch. And then you'll be back at square one, and you'll walk through the doors again one day at a meeting. I'm not sure what happened. I got off plan. I got off track. And then we got to go through it again. So put the brakes on. Ask yourself what really happened. What is my brain trying to convince me of, and is it true? And if it's not true, then what am I so ticked off about? Or what am I so upset about? What am I so sad about? Why am I so bored then, even though my arms work and my legs work and my brain works and I can go do just about anything I want to do within reason to occupy this moment in time? Or am I really telling myself that in order to celebrate this great thing that happened, that I've got to eat a food that I know is not helpful to my overall weight loss / wellness goal? How is that helping? And we can tell ourselves anything. And we can believe anything we tell ourselves. But that doesn't mean it's helpful in the long run. And we're all human. I get it. We all do things that aren't always helpful. But turn the light on. Don't just stand there swearing that it's dark. So, anyways, that's I kind of went ahead of schedule and talked about what I wanted to talk about after you listen to the episode. So hopefully you can cut me some slack on that. And I hope that whatever it was I just got done blathering on about, that you found some utility in it. And like I said before, if you didn't and you would like to tell me about it, you can send that feedback to my inbox at weighingin.with.patrick@gmail.com. I have yet to get even a single solitary email that isn't spam. So even if you just want to send me an email that says, I'm sending you an email because I don't want you to think no one wants to send you an email, that would be great. And then I'll have your email, and I can keep inviting you onto this podcast to have a conversation, share your journey. Or you can just come on, one or the other. Just volunteer to come on. How about that? That would be great. Patrick, I heard your last podcast. You said I could volunteer to come on and tell you my journey. So that's what I'm doing. And then I will reply to that email, and we will begin to set up a time and a date on which, and a place and where to do it. Anywho, this is what is following is part 2 with Bruce. And just for a little reminder, feel free to listen to part 1 or parts of part 1 just to refresh your memory banks as to what we discussed the first time around. Bruce and Johanna have just an absolutely beautiful home, and it was great to be able to sit down in their dining room and chat with each of them individually. In part 2, Bruce and I kind of talk about WW, health, health systems, marriage, things like go-to foods, strategies. He kind of talks about the importance of routines and working or maybe not working the WW plan, your WW plan when traveling. I hope that this is this conversation hits your ears softly and yet poignantly. Here's part 2 with Bruce.
So it's like I've had doctors over the past, 10, 12, 15 years. I question whether they give a crap about what's going on at all, right?
Yeah.
They're so damn busy. They and it's not, perhaps it's not their fault, but in some cases it is. Just recently, I moved from one doctor to a next. Thankfully that person retired, but he just seemed so busy. I mean, I almost wanted to say, what's my name?
Yeah.
Just to see if he knew what it was. Then this new doctor that I have, however, a very young guy, fairly young. I'm not going to say very young, but fairly young, maybe in his 30s or 40s.
Right.
He's interested in me. He sat with me when I first met him, he sat with me for 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
Who are you? What are you here for? Why do you want to be? What, how often do you want to come see me? All that kind of stuff, right? Questions, not specific answers, but questions to me. And so as I responded, I told him what I was looking for. And so, for instance, he's going, your blood pressure looks high. I said, yeah, the last doctor told me to get a blood pressure cup and to check it. And he goes, what the hell do you do that for? He says, because he said, if it's high, then you go into the emergency room. He said, no. I says, listen, I hate to do this, but I'm going to give you a pill. I want you to take this pill. It's going to be the lowest pill that we have, and I think that's going to help do that, right? So he took it. Sure enough, it solved all of that, right? And I'm not saying a pill is the answer, but having high blood pressure is not really the answer either,
right?
And so as he continues to say, is we'll go off that. We don't have to go higher because your blood pressure is perfect now. But I want to get you off of that pill. Now, how you're going to get off of that pill is you've got to lower your weight. So he explained everything about how my heart beats that much harder. So he gave me a whole lecture on how the body functions and that type of thing. So really made a difference, I thought, in saying, for instance, he said, so you need to walk more, right? And so I said, well, I said, I'll walk probably 1.5 miles every other day. He says, yeah, it sounds like you're just walking. I need you to act like you're training. Do you remember training? He says, I'm not looking for you to run a marathon here, but get your heart up a little bit, right? Where you can't really speak as well when you're walking. So, so he's really kind of giving me examples and trying to push me to, because as he continues to say, he holds the pill thing over me, right? You want to get rid of that? That's what you need to do. He says, I assure you, that'll happen. And so as he's seen some of the weight loss that's happened, he's asked me what I've done. He also agrees that it's a great program, right? But he says, with that program, Bruce, you have to do something with it. So what are you going to do with it, right? So how are you going to push yourself a little bit further? Because he says, I need for you to strain your heart, right? I need for you to kind of push that, because that's what gets you healthier. That's what makes you, and I mentioned before the ability of me for my wind, to catch my breath, it seems to go faster based on my Apple Watch. And that's kind of what he's talking about. He says, I need for you to be able to recover a lot faster.
Right.
And how to do that is you put strenuous work upon your heart. Right. And so, so I like what I'm hearing from him that I haven't heard from my other doctors. I will say one of the doctors that I had when I first got to Salisbury, my previous doctor had me on, there must have been 7 different pills. And he's like, what the hell are all these pills? And so I explained, well, this does this. Yeah, no, we're not doing any of that. He said, who in the right mind told you to do that? So he got me off every pill by the end of the piece, and it was cholesterol and everything like that. So I still have so I ended up with now only two, the cholesterol and the blood pressure. But as I said, my goal is to get off both of those.
Right.
But the way to do that is to get through a couple of more chunks, right? And so again, there's a light. I feel there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and those are the lights that I'm looking for. That'll show me that I'm being more successful. The weight itself, I mean, I don't really see it on myself, which is kind of interesting, right? But when I see pictures of myself, I'm like, wow, who the hell is that fat guy, right? But I don't, as I said, I don't see myself that way, right? And so I want to make sure that as others see me and as I talk to others, they probably don't, or they don't see me that way as well, because they look for more of who I am and what I'm here for. But I also see my my neighbors and my friends are very kind of push me in the things. If I'm doing something that needs to be pushed, they want to push me. They want to help as well.
Yeah.
And they certainly want to give me the accolades and stuff like that. So they're just good people. They're just good neighbors.
So, as you're describing your interaction with your new doctor, like he seems to have some of those qualities your dad had.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Like some faith in you, some belief.
Yeah,
that,
and he wants to hear. He
Yeah.
wants to hear you tell the story instead of him telling you the story, right? So you're right. That's probably part of it as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think I was talking about that, like doctors with Kathy. Like, it's tough to put your trust in somebody that you don't think A, trusts you, B, doesn't like you.
Yeah.
If they don't like you or care about you. By trade, I'm a therapist, right?
Yep.
And I had an experience once where I had a colleague had someone on their caseload that they didn't feel that they could help, that this person was just too broken. And it was a kid, a male. And being a male in the mental health industry these days, you're a needle in a haystack pretty much. You don't see a lot of guys doing it. And so I hear this all the time. Well, he would work better with Patrick because Patrick's a male. Not because Patrick's a really good therapist, but because Patrick's a male. I've heard that. It's like, okay, whatever. But so I came to find out this little guy had been passed around because therapists just couldn't fix him. And so they would either leave, go somewhere else, or they would say, yeah, I can't work with him anymore. And so this particular therapist was like, he'll work better with Patrick. I can't get anywhere with him. He'll work better with Patrick. Patrick's a male. I was all right. So introduce me to this person. So we went and we were introduced, and she says, I'm going to let you two get to know one another a little bit. And so she exited the room. So I turned to him and I said, so I'll use a different name. How long have you been working with Eileen? And he looks at me and goes, who's Eileen?
Yeah.
How can you even begin to help somebody?
That's right.
If you aren't sure they know who you are, and vice versa. So just the fact that when you were talking about your doc, that he used the words, you remember what it's like to train. And when you said that, I was like, you must have told him about your background with being a football player and so on and so forth, right? So, and he heard it and like, okay, this is something I can talk to Bruce about. He gets it.
It clicked.
Right. So he's talking to you as a unique individual.
I agree.
Not as a generalized entity, right? Wow. It's not that difficult. It's difficult to go through med school.
Yeah.
But it's not that difficult to just be thorough with someone that is coming to you because they need your help.
Yeah, and I think that the piece that I see too is that, but how many of me's does he have to go through, right? Because the, you know, there's got to be a point too that if for instance the next 6 times I come in here, I'm weighing the same amount, I'm not doing, you know, that maybe to your point, the frustration could occur to where they're like, well, this person is no longer. So maybe that's part of it, or maybe it's also, I'm not the 30th person that this guy has seen for the day, right? I like to go into doctors' offices early in the morning, and maybe that's part of it.
Sure.
Because I don't want to be the 30th person. But I imagine the way it's set up, they probably see that many people a day.
But he still spent 45 minutes with you.
He did. He sure did.
Right.
And that's kind of cool. That's right.
He understands what your goals are.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's talked to you about it. He's
Yeah.
listened to you tell him what the score is.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
One of the greatest compliments I've ever received in my life was when my doctor looked at me and said, "It's important for me as a doctor to know this can be done."
Yeah, that's cool. Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, after all the doctors that I went through that I didn't think gave a shit, and this was the first doctor that really ever just really pulled up the chair and saddled right up next to me. He was like, "All right, let's talk."
Well, and that's why I think the WW family to me makes such a difference, because we all want our story told. We all want for someone to listen, and we want to listen to them, right? I mean, there's times when we sit in the room in there for 30 minutes and someone over talks or they continue to talk, and you know, that's part of it. That's why we're here. So I don't mind that as much, because this may be their only their window, right, to be able to tell their story and to feel good about themselves. And I love that. I think that's, you know, you see joy on people's faces as they're talking about. They're still in the midst of their weight loss as I am, but they've reached a milestone in their opinion.
Right.
May or may not be. It's immaterial. It's their milestone, so it's theirs. And they're happy about it, and they're smiling, and people are applauding them. And I just, again, that family atmosphere, whether WW meant to create that type of thing is immaterial to me. They did.
Yeah.
Or we did. I think that's more importantly, we did that.
Yeah. There's a definite group process happening in
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Even though it's not a therapeutic group, there are some very therapeutic elements that happen in there.
I agree.
So is there anything in the last 4 years that, you know, when you think about workshop meetings, that stands out in your head as like, that was a special moment?
Yeah. So, I mean, gosh, there's so many of them, right? And, you know, what connects you and I together, right? What connects Kathy and I together? What connects other, you know, with the group, Courtney and group, right? So there are things that we all say that just resonate, right?
Yeah.
And so when I hear, you know, Kathy talking about the amount of times that she walks around the you know, where she works and how, you know, how great she now feels about it. And then when we hear about Rick's story about how he's, 130, how many thousands?
1,500,000 steps.
I know, unbelievable.
I was trying to do the math like, okay, I know that if I walk 7,500 steps, that's a mile.
Yeah.
That's just me and my
That's
short
right.
little
Yeah,
legs.
that's right.
How many miles is 200,000?
I know.
What is it? 240,000. Rick, if you're out there, dude, put your feet up. Soak those suckers,
Right.
man. Oh, my goodness.
I was waiting for him to say he tied it to the leash of his dog. But he didn't do that, or at least he didn't say he did that. So again, good for him. I mean, but that's kind of the thing that I see, you know. And as I mentioned before, the other thing that I wish has happened in the last 4 years is more males would come to there, because, you know, my wife suggests, and I hear other people saying this, it's easy for men to lose weight, and perhaps it is, right? But because I can lose weight, you know, I can lose 4 or 5 pounds at times in a sitting or in a week or two. I can also gain that same amount in that same amount of time. So while we may be able to gain or lose weight faster, I don't know that that's scientifically correct.
Yes. So from what I have read, research indicates that it is true in the very early parts of the
Yeah,
weight loss
yeah.
process, just because of our muscle
Right,
structure.
right.
It's just different. But once you get into it,
Yep.
hey, let's line up all of the males in the United States and all of the females in the United States, and then you tell me if it's easier.
That's right. That's right.
That's it.
Yeah.
Because if it is easier, then the insinuation is that we're just a bunch of lazy slobs. And
Well, the other thing that I see too is that the couples that we've met or that we've connected with, right, that support each other and to a ride or die almost mentality,
Yeah.
right? Because it's I think it's that important when you do this, right? And I don't see this as a diet. I still see it as a lifestyle, and I
Yeah.
always will. Because without my partner explaining to me that, are you really going to have that 9th or 10th chicken wing?
Yeah.
And I have to be okay with that, right? I mean, I'm not going to yell at her. That's the last thing I would have in hell.
It's like yelling at the alarm clock.
That's right. Johanna would kill me if I did that. But you're right. It would make a difference, right? And so I find that appealing to me. And so would I like to see more of that in WW? I would, but I'm not the one who's going to. I'm not campaigning for people to get there because you have to want to be there.
Yeah. And you were talking. You mentioned that earlier about unsupportive partners.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And thinking about it, at least from like my vantage point, I think it has a lot to do with that idea of what I was saying earlier about the come to terms with what I have to give up, right? Or do without, do less, or do with less of, right? And I think a lot of guys don't want your weight issues to interfere with what I'm doing. Now,
that's true.
Is that a selfish thing? I don't know. I don't want to say it's selfish, but at the same time, like what I said before in the early stages of this little production when I started it, that I went to Courtney with here's the deal: you're in or you're out, and if you're out, you're out.
Yeah.
Like, I need to know that you love me enough to give up going out to dinner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every night of the week,
yeah.
right? I need to know that you care about me enough to want to change something that you're doing.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree.
And the agreement is I'm going to do everything in my power not to throw you off the path that you want to be on. And in return, I'm going to ask you to do the same thing.
Right.
Right. And if I can't do that as a partner.
Yeah, well, that's what marriage is all about. I mean, it may not necessarily mean maybe not marriage, but that's what partnership is all about, right?
Yeah.
And you're right. If you can't do that for me, then why are we together, right?
Yeah.
Wow, how was that? So I could certainly see that, and when it was interesting when Johanna and I have gone back, it's been a joint effort. We've looked at each other and we've gone, all right, we got to go. Or I've said, time to go back, and she's come with me and hadn't even questioned it, right?
Yeah.
That didn't sound like Courtney did either, right? But that it's been important to me, and it's certainly been important to her. And I can remember, my mom did Weight Watchers way back in the late 60s and 70s, where they, you would always have fish and all that type of thing. And, so it's certainly come a long way, but I can even remember back then, my mother did have weight problems throughout her the whole most of the times that she was alive. But I can remember back then that my dad worked all the time, and so that's where she would take their kids into those type of places as well. But I saw the commitment from my dad to make sure that she did what she needed to got done. But because in the 70s, work was work, and I didn't see that him going to those things or stuff like that.
Right.
And we see it's what 95% female that come to the WW, I would guess, right? And so there's
that's rounding down.
Yeah, that's probably rounding down. I think there's something to be said about. I'm not saying that everybody that doesn't come doesn't support their partner, because I'm certain most of them do. But to me, partnership's partnership. So that means going.
Yeah.
and being a part of what they're experiencing to help them get to the not only your goal but their goal.
Yeah. And there's one of our brethren that attends the workshop meetings. He's married. He doesn't. His partner doesn't.
Yeah.
show up.
Right. That's true too. Yeah.
But it's also my understanding that his partner is very aware of the program and makes meals based on point values and
How
things.
about that?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just because you don't go to the thing doesn't mean that you can't participate in the thing, right? When was the very first time you walked into a Weight Watchers studio or room?
We were in our second house, so it must have been 20 years ago. So probably, I'm almost thinking 20, maybe 97, 20 to 2002, 2003 kind of a thing. So
how long did that first effort last?
Probably a couple of years. I mean, the WW doesn't show it anymore, but it used to actually show all the way back to the very beginning.
No kidding.
So I don't know why it went away, but I really liked seeing it because yet another Patrickism, if you will, was you would always say, look at the overall view and see that mountain go down into a valley, right? Instead of, to see the trend. Forget what you're seeing, the jiggling up and down. Look at the trend. And so when I would look at that, as I would say, it was kind of interesting because I would see one weight, then I'd go down, and then I'd jump back into the same weight. Then I'd go down, then I'd jump up back to the same weight, and I'd go down. So that's we had decided back when we were in our second house that we had to change our life, right? And so we tried, goodness gracious, all kinds of different diets. The cabbage diet, that was horrible. So we tried different kinds of things, and then friends of ours who went to WW had introduced us to it. So we went and tried it and thought this might be something that we can get into, right? And so we've been with it ever since.
Yeah,
of course, off and on.
So you mentioned the cabbage. If you had to come up with a number, how many diets of different types do you think you tried?
10 or 11.
Yeah.
Lots of different, and even never tried like a fasting diet, thankfully, because I like to eat, as I said. But we've tried different, where it's just nothing but vegetables, or it's been nothing but carbs, right? And so, and as I said, the cabbage one was probably the worst one that we had done. But it wasn't healthy, right? And as much as you would say it came from a doctor, it has to be healthy. It doesn't have to be. And so we, to me, knowledge was the biggest thing that I got out of what WW was the ability to understand cake or carrot, right? Just because it's carrot cake doesn't mean, right? And having an all vegetable meal is okay, right? And it's probably as long as it's not a Southern vegetable meal, then you're going to be a little better, right? Because as you know, they put hocks and brisket and everything in the peas and stuff like that.
I think we had an entire meeting on how to properly cook collards. Didn't we?
We sure did. And growing up, or not growing up, but my family growing up in Macon, Georgia, we had our share of all of that, right, as it went through.
So bunch of different diets, looking for the formula. WW seems to be, at the very least, or at the very most, it's easily the most sustainable.
Yeah, hands down.
Right.
I mean, this program works, and we track effectively. Even if you track and you have more, I think I'm at least convinced that they actually give you some grace on the points. So there's times when I overshoot my points and I'm still losing weight, right? And it's not the luck of the draw.
Yeah.
There's a very scientific piece to that I'm convinced they've spent a lot of money and a lot of work in, and I'm honestly surprised that somebody hasn't come off with a knockoff calculator on this, but when I'm sure they have. But that to me has kind of helped me in understanding and how easy it is to scan things and look up something very quickly to understand what its points are. But you get a sense of what the points are going to be based on the calories and different things like that as well. So that I think that's helped me as it's gone through. And throughout the years, they've actually changed, point systems because maybe potatoes aren't as they found actually potatoes are going to, add less weight than they had thought, or there was something else that they came out. So I've seen that. So it's at least, it's got better as it's going through there. But as I said before, the knowledge and the understanding as to what you should be eating versus what you are eating, it was the key for me is to be able to start to say, okay, this is something that I will no longer call a diet because it's now a lifestyle that I want to work on and do for the rest of my life.
It seems to be, you tell me if you agree with this, but it seems to be like the tracking is an exercise. Like if you're doing it, as long as you have to do it, right?
Yeah.
You have to do the tracking to get this benefit. The tracking is an exercise in mindfulness and awareness.
Yeah.
This is what I'm doing right now.
Right.
I'm eating this thing that's, we heard it today, a 17-point
That's
cookie.
Right. Oh my gosh, no kidding.
I get 28 points every day
yeah.
and a 17-point cookie. Like, my God. Does it come with a butler? But just that idea that you were just saying, like knowledge.
Yeah.
But knowledge and the awareness of what you're doing, and when you put those things together, suddenly, and I bet your doctor's probably experiencing this, Bruce makes better choices.
Yeah, that's right.
Bruce makes more choices that are beneficial to his health goals.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. And, the other thing, too, is that people, and some people still do this, but they say, I look back 6 months ago to see how I was doing, to go to, I'll never do that. I really never will. But I do know that the tracking piece of it keeps me on point at this very moment, right?
Yeah.
I used to be one of those guys who would say, had a bad week, I'm not weighing in. I'm still going to weigh in. Every week I'm going to weigh in.
You're never going to have a bad week again?
That's right. Because so what I look at now is that, okay, all right, so if I weigh in and I weigh more, then that just means I should be able to get that off and more the next time, right? And so that's the challenge that I put upon myself. And so I think the grace part is something that I've done now. Obviously, I need to lay off some of the grace at times because of to be able to get down to where my next chunk
is a grace, not gravy.
That's right. That's right.
So this idea of grace, I think, is also allowing alternative explanations as well. That can be true, that they're not, it's not an explanation to excuse my behavior so that I can do more of this behavior that's not helpful. But if I can say, all right, well, I did everything I have normally done, but I'm up this week, that doesn't mean that I have failed or that I screwed everything up. Like you were talking about the trend, right? Like you'd see an increase followed by some decreases.
Right.
My thing is the same way.
Yeah.
Right. I called it like my body would inhale, and I would experience this weird like 2 to 3 pound increase. And once I got used to that rhythm,
right,
I wasn't going, God, what did I do? I'm so stupid. I must have done something wrong. Now I've got to run extra hard this week. And it's like, no. As Courtney has said, you don't always get the weight loss you deserve when you deserve it.
That's right.
And you don't always get the weight gain you deserve when you deserve it, right? We hear that a lot too.
And the grace part to me too is we would never say what we say to ourselves to other people, right?
No.
And so
unless you were a doctor.
Yeah, unless you're a doctor. And so the ability to say these things are okay, right? And as I mentioned earlier, if the decision is that I'm not willing to give something up, then Bruce,
Mm-hmm.
this is how you're gonna be for the rest of your life, and
Right.
that life isn't gonna last as long as you want it to.
Mhm.
And so that to me is not an acceptable answer.
Right.
And so giving, but still being able to give myself grace and being able to understand the difference, right? Because I would never say that to Johanna ever.
Right.
A, she would kill me, and B, it just wouldn't be the right thing to do. So why say that to myself, right?
Yeah.
Why talk? I mean, I know I mentioned a while back when I had said I saw pictures of myself and look at that fat ass, right?
Right.
But to me, that's kind of jest. That's not really saying a negative thing, because again, I feel we are on the right path.
Mhm.
We just have to choose the right direction. Sometimes we're going in the wrong direction, but we just have to know that the trend is taking us in the right direction.
And there's plenty of exits ahead.
Yeah, yeah.
If you lose your way, there are ways to get back on a
Right.
more helpful path. So we were talking about more men joining, right? And it caused me to think something. During the times where you and Johanna have been on the same page, doing Weight Watchers together, did that have any positive benefits to your marriage, your partnership?
Absolutely. I mean, again, this it forms more bond. You know, the bond gets closer, right? You are really you have your partner's back, right? I mean, that to me is all about what marriage is all about, and
Yeah.
so being able to show that and being able to prove that, right? I think is a big part of this. And so when I lose weight, she feels like it's part of her, right? Same thing with her. When she got goal, it was I wasn't excited she was, but I was still excited for her because I knew I was part of that, right?
Yeah.
And so I made a difference, and she's making a difference with me.
Right.
Not only in the planning that she does for on a daily basis or a weekly basis for what we're going to eat at night,
Right.
convincing me to take things into lunch.
Mhm.
That all is stems from the partnership and the love that we have for each other to make sure that we do meet our goal, which is we want to be together longer
Mm-hmm.
than we would have had
Right.
we not done this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I like Courtney so much. I want to be with her a little bit longer.
Yeah.
I get that. What are some of the foods that I think we all have our own food hacks,
Right.
zero
Right.
food fat,
Right. Right.
0 point food stuff. What are some of the ones that get you through?
Yeah. So we do these shrimp burgers, right? And so they're really like full.
Oh.
They're full shrimp.
Yeah.
So you don't grind them up and make patties.
Uh-huh.
You actually form patties by circling the shrimp around
Yeah,
each other and then
okay.
put them, put skewers on them and then grilling them. We grill a lot, right? We grill a lot of chicken. We do a lot of fish.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, as I said, we do meatless Mondays. So sometimes it's not on Monday, but it is at least one day a week when we normally do a meatless
Right.
dinner. Our Saturdays are jointly our days, right? So we may say people call it cheat days, but I don't. I'm just saying no. We just want to eat whatever we go and
It's
want to
part
eat.
of your program.
We determine that, for instance, on Saturdays we don't eat 3 days. We don't eat 3 days, three times a day.
Mm-hmm.
We may eat twice. So
Yeah.
we may go have a great lunch somewhere.
Mhm.
We don't have dinner,
Right.
right? And then, or we
Yeah.
have like a small dinner. So that's who we are. That's what
Mhm.
we do, and that's part of our life. And so that's I think that's a big part of it too, right?
Yeah.
Is being able to understand, Saturdays are going to be okay to do. Sometimes we don't do that, but most times we do. Then Sunday's kind of like a reel in kind of a day, even though during football,
Mhm.
right? So I'll go watch football games, but I normally won't go to a bar
Yeah.
for reasons of I'm not a day drinker, so I'm not
me neither.
I'm not a good day drinker. So, but if I were, I'd eat more, I'd drink more,
Mhm.
and it just isn't good for me, right? And so Sundays I normally stay around the house, or if I do go to a bar to watch a football game, I'm dedicated to that game.
Yeah.
And I don't, I say to people, which is still true, I'm driving. So I'm not going to drink and drive.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to drink a Diet Coke, right?
Right.
And, so those are the kind of things that I do. And so that, I think, again, those types of a lot of vegetables in our meals, Johanna has a garden out back that we use a lot. We go to most times after WW on Saturdays. We'll go to the downtown area to get vegetables and different things like that, the farmer's market, if you will. So that becomes part of our routine, right? So that we look forward to that. And so putting that kind of routine in is kind of what helps as we're going through, not only just in the food side of it, but knowing that you're doing X, Y, and Z on an ongoing basis. Now, when it comes to breakfast, again, I eat almost the same darn thing, like a breakfast burrito or something every single morning, right? Yep. I know it's 6 or 7 points. I'm happy to know that. Now, so Johanna has started to make these, she's made these, scrambled eggs, and then she cooks them, so like a casserole, and then I make my own burritos. Turns out they're 4 points instead of 7 points. So that's one less thing that I have to focus on, but
I'll have to get that recipe before.
It's still they're really very good. And so the idea of me taking lunch, right, to go into work, I drive, goodness gracious, I drive 72 miles to work every day, and so it's a long day. And so normally when I'm at lunch, I'll say, hey, let's go out to lunch. I want to connect with my friends and things like that. But at least give me, she's like, give me one day where you don't do that, right? Or you have lunch in. And and I find that other people are doing the same thing, so we still end up having lunch.
Right.
We just don't go out, and so I think that helps as we're going through as well. I think my biggest thing, and not trying to stray away from the food piece, is I need to get out and walk more, right? Because I hear there's a lot of people in this that are walking a heck of a lot, and I need to get out and do that more. And that's from me being a part of the family, the WW family. That's what's kind of incentivized me over the last couple of days or last couple of weeks that I've gone, is to say I need to push myself more. I need to listen to my doctor. What he's saying is to burn my heart up a little bit, so I can and so I think that'll help as well as we move forward.
A Courtneyism that would be a good plug in there in those moments where should I walk or not walk? She says, I get to go for a walk.
Yeah, good for you.
That's what she says.
I like that.
Right? And she says she has to do that to herself when she's sitting in her car in the parking lot outside the gym, like, I don't want to go in there again. I get to go in there. And then she goes. Yeah,
good for her. I like that. I like that.
What are there any other that you can easily identify as big shifts over the last 4 or 5 years in your mindset about how you think about weight loss, weight gain, any of that stuff?
Yeah, I think as I mentioned, growing up, it was, we would have roast every Sunday.
Yeah,
we ate very well, macaroni, cheese, all of that stuff, right? That was common Southern,
and not out of a box
no,
either.
Not
right?
out of a box, no. As I got older and older to start to understand, and the knowledge that I learned from the WW, I think that's made the biggest difference for me, of being able to understand what I'm putting in my mouth and how important it is to understand what I'm putting in my mouth, not just to. So when I look at fried chicken versus roasted chicken, why wouldn't I choose roasted chicken? Right now, I've got an affinity for roasted chicken. I don't care for fried chicken anymore. Matter of fact, I don't care for very many fried food anymore, because it's not. It's
strange, isn't it?
Yeah. Where you used to love it, it don't anymore, right? And so, and even things like French fries, as much as I used to love French fries, not as big on that. I will have them. I'm not disputing that. And so getting the knowledge and understanding as to what I'm putting in my body and what's happening because of it, I think has been probably the biggest aha moment that I've had over the past 4 or 5 years. Because before, while I still learned and I still understood and I still tracked, to me, this was a diet, right? This was something that I needed to get to lose weight, so I could not necessarily do anything, but so I could be this weight, right? And so now it's not that way anymore. It's how do I continue this charge in the direction that I need to go, and as long as I'm trending in the right way, then that's got to be okay with me.
In the last, so back to WW in 2021, has there been anything in the last 4 years since you came back that previously might have derailed you, that you worked through and hung in there, and you're here today still?
Yeah,
doing it?
so I think the understanding and seeing the program work, right? So I've lost probably 30, 35 pounds with this program. So I know it works. And so that's, in other areas when we were trying other different things, and even at the beginning of the first couple of times we did WW, I would have said, this isn't really working. I need to move away from it. Right. But it was probably as I said, as I got into the end of the second and the third time that I did this, and noted, gosh, I really did lose weight, and I felt fantastic.
Yeah.
Right. The walking or the ability to do a lot more things became a lot easier. Right. And so, as I'm aging, I'm finding that some of those things are still becoming easier to happen. And I'm looking forward to being able to do more. Right. And so that to me is probably what drives me, that would have derailed me in the past.
Did you say you were in your 60s?
Yeah.
See, I was going to ask because I was like, I don't want to overshoot here, but I'm pretty sure Bruce looks like in his late 40s, early 50s.
Yeah. I'm 61.
You look good.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Well, we're looking forward to a time when I retire. So, but that will require us to do a lot of walking because Johanna's from Germany. Which is great. We get to go to Europe. We get to go across all the U.S. and that's coming up in the next few years. And so we're saying, well, then let's make sure that we're able to do that. Right? Let's not walk around in a wheelchair. Let's walk around by ourselves. Let's walk around holding hands, going to Paris, going to Germany, going to Fulda, which is where she's from. And again, I want to see U.S. Right? I want to see more of the U.S. than I've seen in the past, and that's going to require being healthy and being able to want to do things like that.
Right. When you and Johanna go travel, and by travel I mean you're away from home for a week at least. Yeah. What's that look like for you guys?
So
as it relates to this weight loss journey.
Yeah, I think we find that we're able to, because of the 17,000 step walks that we have on a daily basis, we're still able to eat okay. When we go to her home and her family in Fulda, I drink a lot more than I should, but they're Germans, and that's what we do, right?
Do they have light beer in Germany?
I don't think so.
Isn't it illegal?
Well, it's light if you hold it up to the light, but that's the only way. But so I think Johanna has a gluten allergy where it's really not the allergy, it's more of the chemical, right? So when we go when we find places that have flour that is not made in the U.S., she can eat it. Yeah. Like we go to a place called Anizio's, which is an Italian restaurant here, Italian pizza place. Their pizzas, their doughs from Italy, or their flours from Italy, so she can eat that without any problem. So every time we go to Germany, she gets to eat all the breads and things like that that she doesn't get to eat here. So there's a lot of that when there's a lot and a little bit of that as we go through. But as I said, we still do this moderately, but the concept of us walking we don't walk 18,000 steps daily here, right? And so we may hit 10 or 12 at best when that comes into play, but I think that additional one kind of helps us as we go through. So I don't think we don't go hog wild, if you will, on eating, but we also don't stop ourselves from having foods that I think Kathy even said this today of you don't normally get that. Somebody was talking about having the beignets when they went to down to New Orleans, and so I think it was Trina, and when you get to a point to where you don't normally get that, there's a favorite German of meat, a smoked meat called Eisbein that I don't get here, right? When I go there, yeah, I'm going to have that. And so those are the kind of things that I think we find. But we still probably only eat twice a day, though. We don't eat 3 times a day. So I think that's an important piece as well.
They're not over there gorging themselves in Germany, right?
No, they're not.
I would imagine. Right, we can agree there's something called a food culture here in the United States.
There sure
right?
is.
And if there is a food culture in Germany, it's vastly different.
Yeah,
I would
and
assume.
when they cook like meats and stuff, they're smaller in size. I mean, when the Germans come here and we'll cook a steak, I mean, it's like we'll cook a porterhouse, and they're like, that's like 7 times the size of the steaks we have here, and they grill out as well, but their steaks are a lot smaller, or they have like pork belly, or they have the chicken, and it's just everything's in smaller sizes, right? Whereas here, everything's big here. It's kind of like everything big in Texas, right?
And I'll bet you even the makeup of their food is different. So right? Like isn't there?
Yeah, the chemicals are not the GMO. Is that's why she's able to eat at those places. I mean,
like I think I saw was it 60 Minutes or something, where they compared what ketchup in Canada looks like from like the label, the ingredients on the label, and then the United
Less
States.
chemicals.
And
That's
it's
right.
like, they don't put the high fructose corn syrup in
they sure do
in
not.
there. You know
That's
what I mean?
right.
So like, it's very strange.
Yeah.
So we go to this meeting every Saturday when we're in town, and we generally, maybe completely, recognize faces that are across from us and next to us, right? We know who's who for the most part. But we also may miss things about the individuals that attend because, we just don't.
Yeah. We only see them for 30 minutes, right?
And usually the moment that meeting is over, it's a beeline for the parking lot, right?
Yeah.
And so we miss certain things, or we don't consider this person has this talent. You had mentioned earlier you juggle.
Yeah.
You've walked a tightrope. Aside from things like that, what are people possibly missing about you that doesn't come across in a meeting?
As I said before, at work, I'm very committed to the quality and testing. I've been doing it for almost 20, 25 years. That's a big part of me, right? But I'm a very optimistic person. People probably see that in meetings, though. But I'm always like to help people, and I try to make a difference in that every day. I get that from my lovely wife, who is really driven in that as well. I'm very committed to her, and I'm madly in love because I met the love of my life, and I hope to keep her for forever, right? So we're pretty simple when it comes to the things that we like to do, but we do like to travel, and we like to travel a lot, right, as often as possible. And so I think the biggest piece that I see is that that people may not know about me would again be the compassion that I have for the current work that I have, or the passion that I have for the work, and then how that carries into my normal life, because I'm not going to work forever. Yeah. And so, but this optimism and passion will still be there. It'll just be driving through something else.
Is there a cause or a charity that is close to your heart that you like to work on behalf of? Is there anything that I didn't ask? You're like, why didn't he ask me that yet?
No. I think again, if I go back to what during my teen years of how I grew up, right, with my brother and sister, with a divorced family, because I lived with my dad. We lived with our dad, and so. Meals were kind of haphazard at that point because my sister would make the meals, and she again still very Southern as it goes in, and so we ate whatever was on the table, but nobody ever really I've heard a couple of people kind of saying they really kind of controlled. I never had that kind of a concept, and perhaps I might have needed that, right? When my dad remarried, his new wife Jeanette came to us and saying, like on Sunday, she was going to cook a meal without meat. And we had thought, who the hell would do that? Why would you do that, right? And so she was trying to teach us how to eat better, right? And it took, goodness gracious, as she reminds she's no longer with us, but as she reminded us, it took us 3 or 4 years for us to get the picture, because we always bitched and moaned at her at that. But, you know, so I think she was probably one of the first people that really started to add that value of what you're putting in your mouth is killing you, right?
What was her
and
name?
So Jeanette.
Jeanette.
Yeah. And so really made a difference in my teen years, specifically around that. And, you know, she generally cared about us, not just loving my dad, but cared about us. And she showed that every day. So I thought that was cool.
That is great.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else in your life that stands out as being a huge support? Again, Johanna would be an obvious one.
Yeah.
But is there anybody else in your life, a friend, another family member, that when you look to them, you're like, yeah, I want to be a little bit more like that?
So my best friend is, he lives in Philly, but him and his wife, they're the ones who introduced us, and they were our best man and woman in the wedding. And so that we still see them at least once a year when we go to the beach or something together. But what he does and how he does it is always kind of cool. And he's just a great friend. Somebody that I've had who's been friends with for almost 30 years, if not longer. So, you know, there's, you know, we have a good group of friends here. When we moved from Salisbury 4 years ago, we said we wanted to reside back here because we had a group of friends in South Charlotte that we missed.
Yeah.
And so it was cool. It's cool to catch back up with them. We've got several friends that, you know, I've known for almost 30 or 35 years that lived before, when even right before Johanna and I first met. Several of the friends that I'm still friends with now, we're still, as a matter of fact, I'm playing golf with him Sunday. Is that up you know, where he lives. So those are all cool connections that longevity of friendship, right? I think is very important, right? Because not too often we don't take that for granted, or we take it for granted. I'm sorry, is that we had a connection with these people, and we continue to have these connection with people for so many years. There's got to be something that continues to draw us together.
Yeah.
And that kind of friendship and that kind of love and that type of thing is part of it. So that to me is what really kind of drives that sector of it.
That's great.
Cool.
Who's your favorite golfer?
I am. I really don't watch, but I do like the work that Rory does. But I don't really watch as much golf as I would like to.
You're a watcher. You're not a watcher. You're a doer.
Yeah. So I normally do that. So normally when they're playing golf, I'm playing. I want to be playing golf as well. So,
all right.
But I do like the work that Rory's doing. He's doing a good job on that.
That's great. So there's somebody possibly listening to this, either to, you know, when this is released or months later, that maybe they're at a low point. They just are almost completely convinced that they just don't have what it takes to figure out their own personal Rubik's Cube of weight loss, right? What would you tell that individual, if anything?
I'd say either find a good friend or go find a class, right? A WW class, and know that those people have done where you are, and have been there before, and so they can help. You know, as we continue to say, we've got a family in there on Saturdays, and I'm convinced that at least 3/4 of the people agree with that, right? There may be some people who either come and go, but it's a good group of people. And so we've all been there. We know what they're going through. And so if you're in your deepest crux right now of saying, how in the world am I going to get out? You know, a couple of things that we've talked about. One is, well, if you don't go, what's your options, right?
Yeah.
You can continue spiraling, or you can go talk to somebody and let them help you, because there's people out there that want to help. And it doesn't cost that much money to do that. People want to lend an ear. People want to help out, specifically in the WW space, because we all love food. and the ability to control that love is got to be part of it, right?
Control that love. I had an image in my head of the ringmaster at the circus with the chair and the whip, you know. Well, great. So, Bruce, thank you so much.
You're welcome. This was cool. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to it.
Oh, I really appreciate the time that you took to share your story. And hopefully we can do it again.
Good. Love to.
Feel free to think of some things you would love to share with our tribe mates.
Okay. So, some of the things that we've talked, and I know we've already talked about this too, but I think it would be kind of cool to do a podcast with couples, right? So that might be a good angst as well as to go through, because I know without Johanna, I wouldn't be where I am today, not only in weight loss, but in life, right? Yeah. And so that's got to be a part of this. She's my ride or die. There's no doubt about that.
No, that's I'm out in front of that.
Yeah, good.
That's already on my radar.
Cool,
absolutely. Well, all right. Well, Bruce, if somebody would like to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do that?
So I've got an email address. It's called bruce.lovern, Lovvorn, V as in Victor, @gmail.com.
Great. He is Bruce Lovern, or as they used to say in the old country of France, Lavant.
That's right, they did.
And he is our guest on episode 8 of the Weighing In with Patrick podcast. It was really a pleasure. I learned a lot about you. I'm thankful for that. And you have a great rest of your day, Bruce.
You too.
Get out of there, Bear!